That's back on, but don't even worry about it.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, where did you graduate college from? Where did you go to college?
I graduated from St. Anselm's College in Manchester.
Oh, really?
I did.
I have a friend who's going there.
I graduated in 1980, so that means everybody's going to be able to calculate my age. Yeah, and I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, and I went to St. A's totally on a lark. Actually, it was because I thought the admissions counselor was really cute, and because my parents really couldn't afford to send me to college, and especially not St. A's.
Right.
But they made it work for me.
Right. Did you have to, this is kind of a personal question, but forget that's there.
Yeah.
Did you have to, like, pay for any of your college? Like, I know when I'm going to college, like, I'm going to JMU, which is James Madison.
Love that school.
I love it. I'm so excited to go there.
School. My daughter checked that school
really?
out, and one of her best friends is there, graduating in a few weeks.
I'm going in 2 weeks for their accepted students day, but I'm so excited. But like I had the choice to either go to Bridgewater State or UMass Amherst because I applied to those 3 schools. But like after I visited JMU, I loved it, and I'm going in undecided.
Yep.
But like I have interest in like hospitality management, business, education, so basically anything, which is why I'm undecided because I don't want to like.
Yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Right.
Yep.
So my parents, they're putting like some of the stuff on me, but that's just like a little bit. So when you were in college, did you have like a job on campus or?
I did. I had a job. First, I started off in the athletic department. I worked as a secretary there, and then I moved into the admissions office after that. So it was a work-study program.
Okay.
So basically that gave me like my spending money. So my parents couldn't send me money. But you have to remember, back then, I probably didn't spend more than $5,000 a year on room and board and everything else. But still, that was a lot of money, and I had worked a lot before then. And the money that I made really helped a lot to pay for that education. Nowadays, $8 an hour is not going to make a dent in a lot of what you guys have to pay for. It's just really hard. So I know James Madison doesn't give scholarships because you're an out-of-state student. St. A's gave me scholarships, and they gave me work study. And then I came out of school with $10,000 in loans. Again, a lot of money back in 1980. And I paid it off over 10 years.
Right, and mine, like, it's bumped up the price so much these days. So with mine, my family is in a good, like, financial situation, but I have 3 other siblings.
Yep.
So I'm the second oldest, and my brother goes to UMass Lowell. So he's going there for, like, basically nothing as of what, like, the price is now. But, like, I have to pay $5,000 a year myself, so I could come out with $20,000, but I'm going to work to pay it off so I can come out with as little as possible. If you come out with 20,
that's not bad. That's not too bad. But I know it's really stressful. But it's really an awesome school.
Exactly, and to get the education, to have that education available, I'm so excited. I really think that I'll come out with.
But the other schools are also good schools, though.
Right, and UMass
schools.
Amherst, like I got deferred from UMass Amherst because they're bumping up their standards these days, and like I'm like above average, like right above average, not like average to above average. But even I got deferred, which is like I was surprised, but it just shows how much they're bumping up their standards. But anyways, back to these questions. So what made you want to get involved in all of these leadership positions?
Well, it's kind of circuitous. In 2001, I was on a sabbatical. I took time off from work because I'd been at the company I was at for a consulting firm for 18 years.
Right, I had saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You did a lot before all the volunteer work.
Yeah, and so I did, so that was for 18 years. I went out, I think in July. So I was out July, August, September. And so 9/11 happened. And at that time, my son was only 4, and my daughter was in 2nd grade. And I think that solidified my ability to stay home. Like, I was really nervous when I went out on that sabbatical because I was really afraid that I would be so bored, that I wouldn't have any friends, that there was just so many what ifs, because my whole self was wrapped around my career.
Work, yeah.
And so that day happened, and there were friends of mine who weren't on the planes, but they were on planes that saw what happened. And I traveled a lot, and there were a lot of things that just, told me that, what, now is the time to stay home.
Right.
And I was not the type of person that could stay with home with my kids when they were infants. There was just no way. And even as they were, in the years they still stayed like in preschool and all that kind of stuff, so I could do other things. So the reason I got involved was because I had to have something. So I immediately joined the Norfolk Lions, immediately, and then signed myself up to be the chairperson of their community day. And so then through all that, I met so many people. It was just a great way to, and at that time it was all men too. It was all men.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
The superintendent at the time in Norfolk she came in and out, but she was never a member of the Norfolk Lions. And I remember distinctly going to my first meeting, and it was at one of the restaurants that's not there anymore. It's where Novato's currently is, but it's not, it was Tyler's, I think. Yeah, Tyler's. It was all these guys. And we all had to always make sure we wore business attire, because again, everything was formal back then. You weren't into business casual yet.
Right.
And some of the guys did not want me there. They absolutely did not want me there, because they had always been all men, and but for me it wasn't hard, because what happened when I was going through my career, developing my career, I ran into a lot of issues with men. So I was like, I don't really care. I had enough self-esteem to
right,
say,
and you had the confidence to push through,
yeah.
and the past experience from your job. Now, is this like kind of the board of the Norfolk Lions that was all men?
No, it was the entire Norfolk Lions. There were about 40 guys at that point. We're now up to 100 members, and there's a lot of women in it. It's really great. So they accepted me because they did see that I worked hard, that I actually could lug, wood, and Christmas trees. Christmas trees is one of our biggest things, and they put me on every single afternoon shift, because nobody, everybody else was working, and I would be on the shift from 3 to 6, and they saw that I could actually lift Christmas trees and put them on people's cars. So that was my big thing, and then from there, everything else evolved. I got involved in education because a friend of mine was heading up a local chapter of Stand for Children, which was at that point in time fighting for money for our school systems, because our 3 towns weren't doing a very good job of supporting our school systems. So that's how I got really started on the school thing.
Gotcha. So do you think it was all men because it had previously been all men, so it was men hiring men, and then those men, and it just hadn't, there wasn't that woman to come in and say, I'm interested, let me try this, because you were the first one?
That's it, because the way that you join the Lions is you can just, I can invite you, if when you're 18 and, you want to come to a dinner meeting, and if you're really interested in what we do, then we can invite you to become a member. And all that means is that you're part of the national chapter, you pay dues, and you come to, we've got a dinner meeting once a month, we've got business meeting once a month, which at this point I don't go to because I'm just too busy. But they, that was the reason, because there were guys, they didn't invite women, they just didn't think about it. And I actually had somebody, there were a lot of women in Norfolk at the time too who didn't think that it was cool.
Were they scared to go and do it, or were they just not interested, or were they worried because no one had taken that initiative and
Yes, yeah, nobody had done that, and I had somebody actually come up to me and say, this was a guy, what are you doing? You should be joining the Rotary. This is a bunch of blue collar workers. I was so offended. First of all, I don't care. My dad was a blue collar worker, so, and you know what? Labels do not define who you are, it's who you are as a person. And that made me even more committed.
Yeah.
And so, it's evolved. it's evolved.
And that's how you got involved in all these other things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I met a lot of people through there. I met the wives of a lot of these guys, and they wanted me to get involved, and the next thing you know, it's like all sort of snowballed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, based on the past women have endured from obtaining the right to vote and other freedoms that men have already had, there is no denying that it has been more of a challenge for women to step up and become just as powerful as men, like you've been talking about, in modern day America. So, can you talk about some of the barriers that you've had and some of the things that men may have said to you that may have made you feel like you didn't want to do it, or you didn't feel confident or skilled enough, or anything that they've said through your career?
Yes.
That may have put you back.
My original plan was to go in for nursing. I don't know why, because my summer jobs had me working in an office.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get in for nursing because I had a C in physics in high school. So, what can I
back
tell?
to high school? Wow.
Right. Well, what can you do? So I really wanted to go to St. A's. So I decided to major in business and economics. And I was one of 5 women out of 72 economics and business majors. And that itself was a big deal because there were just 5 of us women who sat in a lot of those classes. It was the same thing in the criminal justice program at St. A's too, because the school had actually evolved from being, all male school, and then they had the nursing program, and then it became a bona fide co-ed school.
Right.
So when I graduated from there, actually when I was in college, I did an internship in Washington, D.C., and I worked for the Department of Housing, and, all the guys were always giving you stuff that was secretarial in nature. Now, nothing against secretarial work or that whole thing, but that's not what I was going to school for.
Right.
And they always they'd pat me on my head and treated me like this little girl. So you fast forward to my getting into my career and getting into what I got in. The end one was the consulting firm, and that too had a huge glass ceiling. It was huge. It was basically an all men's club, really, except for the secretaries. So I got in there during the time that 401k plans were first developing. So it was just a whole new business, and they were hiring a whole different bunch of people. So I got in there, but all of the partners in the firm were all men except for one woman. And so you would when I talked to clients, sometimes I had this one client who would call me honey all the time.
Oh, God.
And I was looking for my jobs too. Even before I got that job, people would say, well, I'm sure, you're looking to do this, like some little, like I was some little housewife.
Right, like you weren't up at the same level as them.
Right. And so when I got to Wyatt, it was a lot of work. There was a lot of work to move up that ladder. I not only had to learn a lot of new things, but I had to endured sexual harassment, what would be referred as sexual harassment now. When guys make off-color jokes, and you've got to sit there and just like ha ha ha.
Did you just take it what? Because what are you supposed to say when they say those?
Right, that was the culture back then. Us women would be like, hello, but we would just laugh along with them. It was that kind of that boys' network,
Mm-hmm.
and everything went. So you could just say stupid off-color things, not even thinking about what you're saying.
Right.
And so I didn't say anything because at that point in time I was trying to move up, and I didn't want to rock the boat, and but things did evolve over my 18 years.
Right.
Things totally evolved, and more women got involved. I did become a partner at a rather young age, really, and then more women were hired. I always made a point of hiring women, and it was just, I really enjoyed what I did. I really did.
Right.
But getting there was, and you always had to do double the work sometimes. There were many times when I stayed at work all night, like we had a deadline and I'd stay all night. You had to just prove yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you feel like you have to like prove yourself as a woman and being one of the first women to be that way?
Yeah.
And with the whole sexual harassment thing, I do feel like it's gotten better today because, I mean, obviously there's still companies that are like not equal with men and women. Like, if you look up the stats of, say, principals versus women teachers versus superintendents, only 14% of superintendents are women, and that's like the highest tier of a school.
Right.
But I would say that with the way women are treated, it has been better, but also there have needed to be women like you who stand up for yourself and don't take that.
Right. I mean, the bottom line is that I know it's hard sometimes because it depends on where you come from in your past.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes your past gets in your way, and you can't be all that you can be, and you're intimidated. But all I can tell people is, you just have to go for it, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And actually, everybody always likes to help you too. Other women like to help you. In fact, my daughter is just graduating from college right now, or she will be in a few weeks, and she just got her first job offer today, and she's expecting another one tomorrow. And she really liked this group because she met with 3 women, and she said it was just so, it was serious, but it was funny, and she felt like she would be mentored, because there were women who were there. So, I mean, we'll see what this next job offer is, but she has it so much better than those of us who, I want to say, graduated, end of the 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, it's been great.
So, let's see. What is one characteristic that you think that every leader should possess? So, like, anything that you could say that you think to be a leader you need to have.
Actually, I think there's a couple of things. A good leader has to be able to listen, and take feedback, and be able to analyze it, because you can't, as a leader, you can't be the one with all the answers. The
Right.
leader has to know how to take information from a whole bunch of people and help that group make decisions. So, for example, I would even say a good leader, and it kind of goes along with listening, you have to be really willing to go out there and meet new people. If you're in a company, you need to go out and walk around and meet your employees, know what they're up to personally. As the president of the KPMA, I always make sure to come to all of the events because I feel it's really important that I get to know the kids, and plus I really love to know the kids,
Mm-hmm.
and get to know the parents, because that's where you get information. And I don't always have to, you shouldn't always be the one talking.
Right.
You need to listen.
So would you say that today versus back then it's gotten to a point where a lot more women are getting these positions equal to men and it's becoming more equal?
No.
Or would you say that there's still women that are scared to
I think a lot of women are still intimidated. I think a lot of women are intimidated by math and science. I think more women should be getting into engineering, anything technical, and I think women are afraid. I think they're afraid to fail. I think they're afraid to get that C on their report card, and I think they're afraid to get involved in something that is primarily men. My son is going to engineering school right now, and it's 70% guys and 30% women, and so that tells you right there it's not equal. Women also they just need to feel confident. You're just as smart. You're just as smart as a guy. In fact, we have emotional intelligence that a lot of guys don't necessarily have.
Exactly.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that we're made differently. We are made differently.
Yeah, we're made to be emotional. And I mean, a lot of people, like everyone says, no, we are exactly equal, we're exactly the same. But there is that, like, emotional side. Like, women are more emotional than men.
Right,
Like,
but men have made that out to be a detriment
a
to
weakness.
women. Yes,
yeah, they've made it out to be a
yes,
weakness.
yes.
And now women think that it is a weakness.
Right.
And men think that if a woman is assertive, they find that as bossy or like bitchy or cat-like.
Right, exactly.
So it's just, I feel like you have to, like you said, listen to get yourself up there, and then once you do, then you'll become that role model for other people. But it's still, I feel like it is still a slow progression because it still happens today where there's catcalling and all this stuff. And the whole feminism thing, that's just a rise like the past 2 years. And I don't even know if the whole like feminism argument, if it's taking a turn for the worse, because men, I've talked to some men and they say that, oh, I don't like feminists. And I'm like, well, do you even know the definition of feminism? And then they think that it's women like advocating like women should have higher rights than men, and it's not, which is why everything is so jumbled up these days, I feel like, with even the term feminism.
And you can see that right now at the political, the elections. I mean, it's the same thing. The same thing, I think, happens with, the gender equality as what happens with, black and white equality. I think a lot of people are afraid of the future, and they are afraid of change, and they don't like to see anybody besides that white man in a position of power.
Congress, like take Congress.
Yeah. Yep. White older men, and it's going to take a long time, I think, to change.
Because we're afraid of change.
Yeah, I do.
So, I already asked you what motivates you and drives you to be successful. And based on your experiences, to kind of wrap it up, what advice would you give to any other woman on how to get to where you are, or how to start out from the beginning and to not be scared? Like, what advice would you give them? I mean, I know you already said to listen, but just like as a female to another female, even if it's like an emotional thing, like.
I think you have to go for your dreams. So I started out with the whole nursing thing, and then I switched to business in Echo, and that's because I was working in a company. And I really wanted to be that person who took the train into New York every day. And that was like my dream.
Right.
Like, I wanted to be that person. And so, I went for it. And you have to go for your dreams, and not be afraid. You have to do what you like. That's the other thing I really have to say, is you have to do what you like. I got out of what I was doing because it got, it was too corporate-y. I couldn't, it just, I know. It became a burden.
Yeah.
And I much rather work in smaller environments now. The traction way back when was that the company was smaller, and we all worked together. You didn't have silos. People would roll up their sleeves and do whatever needed to be done. And that's why I really like what I do here, because I just do whatever has to be done, and that's just who I am. But going back to the advice, I get involved. Just get involved. Do what your passion is. Don't be afraid to look for volunteer opportunities. Don't be afraid to talk to people, because people really like to talk to other people.
Right.
People want to help other people. Don't worry about what somebody thinks about you, because actually they're not going to remember you tomorrow. They really aren't. I'm sure that there are people I've interviewed for jobs, and they probably think they did something stupid, and probably, felt really bad about themselves. And some people just take it to the nth degree.
To them, it was a huge deal.
Yeah, and they keep it internal forever.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that's like that. She still remembers some things she did in college, and she won't go back to a reunion. And it's a long time ago.
Wow.
Long time ago.
And people change too.
People change, and people, they don't remember. They
Exactly.
don't remember, I hate to tell you, but, nobody's going to remember that, you got a 4.0 at King Philip, or that you were, the salutatorian or valedictorian, they won't remember.
Right. I'm trying to think of if I had any more questions. I mean, you went like above and beyond with all my questions. So that's good because I wanted to like branch off the questions, which we did.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of good information. How long has this been going for? I don't know.
So when do you, so now you've got to splice this all together?
Yes. So what I had to do was, I think I can turn this off now.